Yeah.
Okay.
So Cordelia just has a hard time mainly with like I'd say she just has a hard time with like what'd you say? Learning it in another language.
Like memorizing the words in the other language for the chanting or whatever, like
just in general memorization, like that's not what she like really enjoys doing.
Sure.
Kind of
So, like the rote memorization that comes with the studying, like it really, like the occult involves a lot of esoteric things, right?
Mm.
And depending on as a witch, you would be exposed to a range of different kinds of occult traditions, and then some of them, it's all about the willpower, and it's all about kind of going with the flow and understanding the environment around you. And others, it's like, well, if this line is 2 degrees off, the demon's going to kill you, so don't fuck up that 2 degrees. But if it's if it intersects this line, then you're going to get an entirely different creature, and then you want it 2 degrees this way, and like all these kinds of like just obscure things that I heard once a theory that the reason why some of that old school ceremonial magic would be so complicated in a fantasy setting is not that the demons are actually bound by it so much as like it's kind of a way for them to figure out who the posers are. So if you're the kind of person that is studious and gets all of the stuff right, then they're kind of like, yeah, okay, this one's cool.
That's funny.
Okay. So you're sitting down and God, we talk about Monsterhearts as being sort of a metaphor for the teenage experience. And is there anything more painful about high school than sitting there and memorizing fucking lists, right?
Right.
Especially when these words are like have no day-to-day use, and like why, at what point are you going to be needing to invoke the difference between the 4th and 5th type of hellfire, right? Like this. So I'm kind of picturing what's a place that you go to when you're trying to do the memorizations or when you're trying to practice, or even better, what's a place that you go to when you are theoretically focusing on the memorization and the studying, but you really don't want to be?
I feel like physical place.
Yeah. Do you go into the woods? Do you go to the library? Do you go to a park?
And I feel like they have like a pretty like nice library in their house.
Okay.
And I feel like she goes there.
Sure. Okay, so you're in the private library of the Goode household.
Right.
Okay. Do you have any brothers or sisters?
No.
No. Okay.
Bunch of only children.
Let's see.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm making this really hard to like find things to.
But
I'm by myself.
But it is possible that she would be like get really annoyed at like having to study in the library where her mom or grandma could see her.
True.
And might like go to a coffee shop or something and like just pretend she's doing homework and be around people.
Well, or we can
there like, or girls or whatever while she did it.
Oh, no, let's run with Cordelia in the library with the wrench.
Thank you. With the wrench.
Okay. So we've mentioned before, like I've mentioned just previously, that with some of these more esoteric skills that you're learning, it requires a high degree of precision.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have a tome in front of you that you're looking through, kind of a grimoire, right? And I don't know if this is the sort that is bound in human skin, or if it's, you know, a little bit more low key than that. Do you have a preference on that spectrum? Like, we could go like full on melodramatic. Like there's even like a tattoo of somebody on the cover, and you know, like there's, what was that?
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay. And you know, it's not necessarily like this book is particularly special in that regard.
Yeah.
This is standard fare.
It's like another textbook, right?
What was that?
So it's just like a normal textbook for her, right? Just like another
one. So and you're going through and you are needing to memorize the steps to an incantation. And I'm kind of picturing this as being like, actually, I'm picturing this as, let's localize this into Loxvale. This is a list of the spirits who made contracts with settlers in this area going back like in like the late 1700s, right? Because this area would have been populated at that point with the so it's just like this list of these names, which they're all written in a different language, and that like has magical subtext to it. And it's kind of the equivalent of looking through the Bible and like getting to the section where it's like, so-and-so begot so-and-so, begot
Right.
so-and-so, begot so-and-so, begot so-and-so.
Which was the point of the Bible at which I went, no, I'm not going to finish this, and set it down. I got all the way up to that.
Yeah.
All the way up to the first book.
Nope.
Good time.
I just skipped that Revelation after that.
Genesis? Is
Yeah.
it?
I
But
think so.
I always just read the exciting parts of it.
All six.
Which is, there's some fucking
No, I know
exciting
there's a
stuff.
lot of weird, like, anyways, I don't need to do that on camera.
Okay. Yeah, no. So Cordelia, as you are looking through this book and kind of doing these studies, I'll give you two options. Because the part of the point behind this is to test out the mechanics and see how they kind of play out before we get into the rest of the session. The two most obvious things that you would have to do in this scenario, there are three things. One, and I'll give you the option of which one you want to do. One is that you gaze into the abyss. As you are reading, you go into a trance and information is presented to you that may or may not make sense. The second is that you have to make a test to keep your cool. Your grandmother is standing there watching, like, as you are looking down this list, she closes the book and requires you to repeat, because what's the point of memorizing if you can just look down and see it. The third option is that some sort of mischievous spirit has been summoned as a result of this practice, and you have to make a shut someone down check to make it shut up and go away.
I think trying to keep my cool would be. Cordelia has a relationship with her grandma that is like pretty much like you described, like loving, but just mainly because she is like really like excited about her potential and pretty much just like is always on her to be studying and practicing. And so yeah, I definitely think she gets really fed up with that.
Okay. Yeah, so you've got this tome in front of you that is just mind-numbing, and like you've reached that point in the studying process where if you were reading something that had more variation to it, you would realize, oh, I just phased out for the past 2 paragraphs. I need to go back and reread it. But because this is in the weirdest fucking script, and it's really just a list of names, it's really hard to notice when you've zoned out and just kept going. And so your grandmother, who has been kind of with a curious eye watching you study, notices that you've been zoning out. And she sets down the let's see, as a student, you are being forced to go through these highly obscure, dense texts. I have one more question for you in terms of your grandma. Is your grandma the sort who has already gone through all that, and so when she sets down a copy of like Cosmopolitan, or does she set down just an advanced, frightening tome?
Okay, I'm not sure I understand.
Does Grandma have pity on you, or does she step up the paces?
Oh no, she would like push her as hard as she can.
Okay.
And
all
like
right.
be a dick.
Well, I'll roll with that. So as your eyes start glazing over, and you know, you're not sure who decided that the library should be as dimly lit as it is. Like for some reason, like the ambiance is more important than maintaining your eyesight. But your grandmother has been reading through a tome on potions, kind of like brushing up herself when she sees you glaze over. The next thing you hear is just a slam as the book closes and causing you to jump up. She walks over to you, and once she gets to you, she grabs the book, slowly and gently closes it with her hand holding the place, and looks at you and says, okay, repeat everything that you just said. And as was established, that is going to be a keep your cool check.
Okay.
So with a keep your cool, how this is going to play out is I'm going to go ahead and click this button. So you roll cold. You have a -1 on cold. That was going to be a total of 4. And the way the system works, 6 or below is a failure.
Yeah.
Yeah, tell me how that plays out. Your grandmother has noticed that you've been zoning out. She walks over, she closes the book, she says, "Repeat the last page for me." And what do you say? What do you do?
So I would wait. So I don't keep my cool. So does that mean that I like immediately blow up at her, or
you fuck it up somehow? But how do you fuck it up?
how do I fuck it up?
Yeah, play the scene.
I'm letting you choose how you fuck this one up. It could be that you just get frustrated and angry. It could be that you just stutter and stumble.
Yeah, I was gonna say I think maybe I start naming I don't know, fucking Pokemon and see if she realizes that I'm
do it.
bullshitting her.
Say it.
Oh God. Okay. All right. So how that plays out is the camera captures her closing the book and telling you, "Repeat the last page for me." You know, you're supposed to be memorizing this, and you're not actually doing the thing.
Right.
And I'm picturing that you start with a couple of the legitimate names, and then just kind of slide into naming Pokemon. And rather than capturing her response, what happens is that the camera is panning as you start sliding into naming Pokemon. And by the time you've named a couple of Pokemon, the camera has panned across the library and it's starting to fade into black. And the next thing we hear is the school bell ringing as the school day is starting the next day. So on the mechanical level, Cordelia, make a note. When you fail a check, you gain 1 EXP.
Okay.
And it takes 5 to get the next rank.
Yes. Yeah. So failure is actually kind of a nice, has some nice perks, as long as you don't die in the process.
Kind of like real life.
Yeah.
Depends on when you fail and what you fail at.
Yes. Okay. So yeah, now we're going to slide into that stinger is kind of meant to sort of define some of how this is going to go. What kind of show are we doing? Never mind the mood whiplash at the end of the episode. So yeah, we jump to the school bell ringing and the busy halls of Locksvale High. It is an older school building, large. Whenever I picture school buildings, I picture them as being brick, but that's kind of my bias. Does that kind of jive with you guys?
Yeah.
Actually, the town that you based it off of apparently had a 3-story brick school building at one point.
Okay, So it is a 3-story brick school building, and I'm kind of picturing. I'm gonna draw inspiration from my own high school experiences here. There is the building. The main campus is kind of a U shape with a courtyard in the middle, and then there are some little side buildings that were built separately. But most of the classes and like all the lockers and stuff are in the main campus. And so the opening shot is just students kind of pouring in to get to class, and all of the rustling and just the movement of the crowd. If I remember correctly, we had noted that you guys all share a homeroom, and your teacher is Mr. Oroskovich. That's what I've got written down.
Yep.
Okay. And we had also established that homeroom is a kind of a shorter period that's mostly just for like announcements and stuff. Yeah, let's go ahead, and I think the standard approach that's used in a lot of these games is, which one of you would likely be the one to get to class first? Do we have anybody that's particularly early? Do we have anybody that's particularly late?
I'm thinking Andy is usually just on time, not late, not early.
Okay. So kind of like a couple of minutes to spare, but nothing too big on either end. How about Frankie? Is Frankie an early or?
Frankie usually comes in right after Andi, because
Oh, of course.
she's gonna follow them around, kind of. May or may not be subtle about it. I have no idea on that one yet.
Sure.
We've been friends for so long that Andy does not actually blink at this behavior. Oftentimes just
It's not unusual.
reserves seat.
Okay. And so is this like how long exactly does Andy usually, or does Frankie usually follow Andy? Like, is this like you wait outside the school until Andy arrives and then you fall in behind Andy as Andy walks?
Behind or beside occasionally, depending on how much space is available.
Sure.
Like we're
Yeah.
friends. Like Andy will talk to him or talk to her. Walking in depending on who got there first.
Okay, so it's less kind of this like obvious like hierarchical following, and you guys are just kind of friends. You meet up at the beginning, like on the outside of the school, and then you just kind of chum around. So Caulan and Cordelia, what's your guys' thing?
Colin is less concerned about on time or not, and more concerned about whatever book he's reading at the time.
Oh,
And does the whole like reading while he walks through the halls thing, and like doesn't really like pay attention to other people that much. Is just like kind of happy and feels, like doesn't feel like it's dangerous to walk through the halls while reading or not paying attention.
right.
And, so sometimes he gets into class really early. Sometimes he's a little bit late. It just kind of depends on how the flow of getting him there from the last class. And if this is the first class in the morning, he'd be there early reading some sort of fantasy novel, not paying attention to anybody.
Okay. All right. And if you get to class early, I was about to throw a jock in your way, but if you get to class early, no. I don't think that Zachary would be there early enough for you to bump into him on the way.
All I'm saying is could be outside talking to his people while I do not see him and run into him with a book. That shit happens.
Okay,
I know
yeah,
the man's been that guy.
one of the things that I'm supposed to do is up the melodrama. So yes, the kid who the first scene that we see of him is reading, like walking through the hallways with his nose just in this book. And he said it was a sci-fi or fantasy novel.
Yeah, like Wheel Time.
Oh Jesus! Like,
Yeah,
you didn't
like
tell me that you were armed. That's
right.
oh God, you're oh, was it you haven't quite gotten to, what is it, like book 5, where things really start to just slog painfully. Like it's still exciting.
It's the winter one, the one of something of winter that everybody struggles with, and then they get to like Knife of Dreams and they're fine. But if they get stuck on the something of winter, then they just like it becomes a slog for a while. Yeah, totally.
Sure.
I know what you're talking about. Winter's Heart. Winter's Heart. That's the one. That's the one that everybody struggles with.
Yeah.
The Monsterheart kid is reading Winter's Heart.
Nice. So actually, I'm gonna throw a little bit of a wrench in here. So you're walking, and as would be befitting a melodramatic moment, you totally just walk straight into the back of Zachary. And we described he's black hair. Oh, what?
I'm just in character. Shit, sorry.
And Zachary, he's not the classroom bully, but he is the jock, and so he's not the sort that's going to go out of his way to pick on people necessarily. But you did just walk into him.
Sure.
So it's actually a little bit more of a stronger reaction than you would expect from Zachary. Normally, he's muscular, he's chiseled, he's got that the
23-year-old playing a 17-year-old vibe.
Oh yeah, totally. And like has got a tattoo that like is actually the actor has the tattoo because the character's parents would not let them get it.
Right.
And but normally he's a fairly, like, he's not gentle. He's a sort that will listen to podcasts about like focusing aggression and being a winner and like these kinds of things, and he applies that across the board.
Sure.
But as you bump into him, he turns around with an amount of defensiveness that seems odd, and grabs you by the shoulder and pushes you against the locker before even realizing who you are.
Sure. Fuck, man. Chill.
You guys have been in the homeroom for a while, so he would know that it's Colson.
Right.
At this point, what's Colson's reputation? Like, this is before the bad shit, so you said that you're kind of a...
He's pretty normal in comparison to the rest of them, A little bit of an airhead in that, like, he's thinking about these other concepts and these, like, fantasy concepts more than he is, like what, other people would think of him or the cool stuff to do. Mm-hmm. So he's kind of out of step a little bit and isn't really, like, known for anything other than just, like, he's decent, but he's a little bit of an airhead because of that.
Okay.
A little distracted, a little weird.
Sure. So, and actually, like, I've I'm picturing that, well, Zachary is not into the nerd stuff so much. There's been at least one time where you had a conversation with him about something that he had read. Like he's not entirely the full just nothing but sports kind of guy.
But he saw Queen of the Damned once, so he read a couple of Rand Rice novels, and yeah, there's some common ground.
yeah. And actually, the thing that I was gonna say is that, like, normally when you picture the school jock, you'd expect him to be hanging out with the cheerleader and so on, and usually that is kind of the crowd. But like as he like, oh shit, sorry Colson, and then he muttering to himself, he kind of looks to the people that he was with, and then just walks into the classroom and goes to his seat. He obviously has something on his mind.
Sure.
And you notice that the two people that he was talking to were, let's see, Mitch and Abby.
Okay.
And they, what?
It's an interesting combo.
Yeah.
Stoner and which one was Abby? Abby was
The one who digs your witchy vibes.
the wannabe witch.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. And upon Zachary moving on, they both like they acknowledge that you're there, and then just kind of awkwardly pretend that they weren't talking and go to class themselves. Well, Abby does. Mitch goes around the corner to
Do what Mitch does.
Mitch does.
And I, not like paying too much attention to them, like that just seems normal. Will be like, God, Jesus Christ, man, don't need to. And I'll pick up my book from off the ground. Like, how many be such a dick about this? I lost my place too. Like, start finding my place as I walk in, and then stop for a moment, and be like, hey, Zach, you okay, man? Again, sorry about that.
He like, yeah, no, it's cool.
All right,
and
man.
then like buries himself, like just looks down at an open textbook.
And just like a kid that age, I will just go on, go to my chair, be like, yep, he's all right. And go back to my seat and start reading.
It's fine. Everything's fine.
Everything's fine.
Okay. So how about when would Cordelia show up? Are you late, early?
She's not late, but she's like right before like the bell rings. Like she's not gonna be there early for sure. Like she won't be tardy by any means.
She steps through the door, and that's when the bell rings.
Yeah,
because
exactly.
it wouldn't ring until she's in the room.
Exactly.
Sure. And so by that point, Andi and Frankie have already been seated, and they're right by the door. Andi, what's your thought as Cordelia enters the room? Like, yeah. Do you have?
Andy's not really paying much attention this morning to anything but his sketchbook.
Okay. So you're kind of focused down.
Yeah.
He's got his agenda. Did you guys have that?
Okay.
Did you guys have to keep a specific agenda for school and like have them check it and shit sometimes?
In middle school, not by high school.
I'm not sure what you mean by specific agenda. You mean a class schedule?
like a calendar that you had to like write in almost like a journal, but you had all your days and you'd write assignments in there and stuff like that. They'd grade you on it. The middle school thing, I might be thinking about middle school, but in my head, that's what I imagine when you say your schedule, like more than a schedule, a thing that you can take notes with, like have everything down for the date, time, and stuff.
Right.
No, I thought Joe said sketchbook.
Well,
Did I?
that's what Andy's been treating it as.
That makes sense. Okay.
Okay.
36-year-old.
Let's see.
Nice.
So Cordelia, as you get to your seat, Abby is already, sitting there, and as you're walking down the row, Abby pricks up and like starts waving.
Yeah, so I'm just gonna kind of roll my eyes a little bit and kind of like put my head down and just like walk to my seat, kind of ignore her, not like super rudely, but just act like I don't notice her.
Oh,
So cold.
yeah. Actually, because I'm gonna be looking for possible places to throw in the mechanics. So there is a possible angle there. I want you to go ahead and roll to shut someone down.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So go ahead and roll cold for me, which I guess I have the die. So
Okay. So my cold is -1.
yes. So that is going to be an 8. So
Do you wildly succeed?
yeah, it is a partial success. So on a 7 through 9, choose one, but you come across poorly, and they give you a condition. So that your options are, they don't have a string on you. So if they have no strings on you, you gain a string on Abby. You give Abby a condition, which is basically you describe something about them. Kind of like choosing a word that defines them, and anybody can use that word against them. Or you take one forward on rolls against Abby.
Oh. Okay. Well.
Just the word defining them amuses me. I just keep coming up with really funny, like, shitty things to say about a person that defines them. Sorry. Go on.
How does that work? The giving them a condition. You said I would give her a word that defines her, and then people can use it against her?
Yeah. Yep. So, for example, you might say that she's a poser. Or you might say that she's needy, or that she's oblivious, or like any of those kinds of like things. And so anytime somebody like defines like uses that trait against her, they get a bonus.
Like saying, like, I want her to help me. I'm going to convince her to help me because she's needy.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think I like poser. I'm not sure. A wannabe.
Thirsty.
Do what?
Thirsty.
Thirsty.
Oh God.
Thirsty bitch.
So what is it?
Yeah, let's just go. Let's go poser.
Poser?
Yeah.
Okay. So, and then because you got a partial success, she gets to, there's something about the way in which you intentionally like ignored her. Like everybody can see that she's like waving, and she is not subtle about thinking that you're a cool person. And so when you just give a no sell and don't respond, it is obvious.
Oh no, I feel really bad.
So
Sorry, you can be mean, girl. It's fine.
yeah. Yeah. So
I mean, it does go with the name Cordelia.
It does.
Right.
It does. Although you're too nice.
so yeah, I'm gonna run with that. The people that are watching kind of get the impression that you're a little mean.
Okay. Yeah.
And
Well, yeah.
And so if at a certain point in the narrative it makes sense that you have kind of like overcome that condition, then we'll take it off. But until then, if somebody cites it, they get a +1 on rolls against you.
Okay.
Okay. So yeah, as you very willfully ignore this this young person who's waving and trying to get your attention, it kind of hits her, and she kind of like slows down and stops and kind of looks to the side and bites her lip and just starts writing notes on a piece of paper, you know, the kind of like writing of notes where she's not actually writing anything, she's just trying to do anything that it's the equivalent of like pulling out your phone to like open a random app and scroll. So yeah, with that the bell rings, and let's see, Mr. God, I'm gonna keep bungling up his name, Mr.
Oroskovich.
Oroskovich.
How do you spell that?
Any way you want to.
Yes.
Oraskavich, which is not how he spelled it, but it was the closest I could remember. It was first grade.
Ah, actual teacher.
Mr. Oroskovich.
Okay.
Yeah. And you know that we're not making this like the first day of school. Let's go ahead and say that it is like we're late into the semester, like it's
November.
yeah, but it's unseasonably warm this week for some reason.
All those bleeding trees.
Yeah. So the homeroom starts, and Mr. Oroskovich starts going over the list of school announcements, we're late enough in the semester that there's not really like any kind of tryouts or anything, but the chess team came in third in the regionals last week, and there are going to be study groups for the AP tests coming up if anybody wants to join in those for last minute cramming. What's that?
Oh, just having flashbacks. I remember those.
Yes. And what? Oh. And you know, like I think some of the other things that I've read that are commonly discussed at this point are like what the lunch menu is going to be. And
Today's lunch is goulash and
sure.
I don't know, something else. A vegan option.
Yeah. So, and that's all going to go fairly quickly. Mr. Roskovich is the kind of guy that he's more than happy to help on a one-on-one level. He's a fairly gentle kind of person, but he is also not one to waste your guys' time any more than he has to. Like, there's a reason why this class is short. It's not actually a class. So once he gets through all the announcements, he gives you guys 10 minutes to, you know, do your work or otherwise not cause too much trouble. And he walks over to Josephine, the student in the top left corner of the school, or of the seating chart.
The nice girl.
The nice girl. And starts talking her through some algebra that she's been having a hard time with. So that leaves about 10 minutes for you guys all sitting around. You okay, Linda?
Yeah, no, just trying to resolve a memory from so long ago.
Sure.
He was actually my 5th or 6th grade teacher, not 1st grade.
Okay.
It's like, oh.
I will go back to reading because I've got time.
Sure. Frankie, what do you do when you have 10 minutes to spare in homeroom?
I'm gonna try to watch everybody else in the room.
Not creepy at all.
Yep, exactly.
Oh, and you can't exactly be subtle about it either, because you sit at the front of the class.
Yep.
So you just start scanning back and forth. Let's see, who is immediately around you?
Marsha, the talker next to me.
Yeah. So
Bobby,
Marsha starts going on about how there is a totally cool party happening tonight. Yeah. That it's a fairly, like, during the summer, it's a fairly common thing. There's a campground to the west of the city. And so it's not uncommon for the teens to go out there to go into the woods and find some secluded spots and just kind of have a beach party. And normally it's too late in the year for that sort of thing, but there's going to be a bonfire, there's going to be some booze, and it sounds like some of the seniors are getting things together, and so, you know, I mean, that's all like the kind of like basic info that I'm giving you, but Marcia is like talking about it in a lot more excessive detail. Like she hasn't been to one of the senior parties yet, and you can tell that she's going to go to this one, and she's nervous and excited and happy, and Lord help you, like Paul the bully is to her left, and so you're the person whose ears she starts talking off.
Mhm.
Andi, you as you can hear Marcia in the background kind of talking Frankie's ear off about this bonfire party out at Devil's Rock. You recognize that you've heard about this previously. It sounds like one of the parties being held by at this point he's a senior, a student named Logan Amati, who is known as something of a musician, but also his father.
There was a glitch. He's known as something as a what?
Something of a musician. And his...
I didn't get it again.
Something of a musician.
Oh, okay.
And like his music is supposed to be really entrancing. He's also, you would recognize him as the son of Mr. Amati, who is one of the old monies in town. Somebody that your mom doesn't do a lot of business with, but would like to. So yeah, you overhear this conversation that Marcia is having with Frankie about this totally cool, totally awesome thing that the seniors are doing. That and you realize that Frankie, as her excitement is peaking, she doesn't have a car and she's not sure how to get there.
Uh-huh.
And this particular hitch into the logistics hasn't occurred to her until she like has gotten herself all the fuck hyped up about it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, and left to her own devices, she'll just keep talking. Do either of you want to engage her or run with it, or?
Sure. What are the, let me pull up my options real quick.
And with the moves, like, don't worry too much about focusing on which move you want to use. Just kind of describe how your character responds, and if it fits a move, I will say, hey, we're going to do the thing.
Okay.
So how do you respond to this overly excited junior, like fellow junior, who is all on board the drink beers at Devil's Rock this evening? Because it's unseasonably warm, and there's not going to be very many opportunities for this until next year. So you gotta embrace it. You gotta live life.
I'm gonna kind of try and cool, but like, yeah, actually, like there's gonna be some pretty cool music there, and do you have a ride yet?
She like pauses, and the realization that she in fact does not have a ride. What's that?
Her eyes get big. She starts looking excited and hopeful.
Like, does Andi have a car?
What?
Out of character, does Andi have a car?
Andy's dad has a car.
Okay.
but they will sometimes like swap, like if there's nothing else going on and he happens to know that the car will be available
Sure.
for the party.
Sure. So Marcia, yeah, her eyes open up wide with excitement, and she leans in and says that, well, she hasn't figured that part out just yet, but she feels like she's destined to be at this party, so she knows it's gonna work out. And then she, like, with that expectation in her eyes, she looks at you with the unspoken question.
Well, yeah, actually, because carpooling's great for the environment. Let's go.
Okay. So yeah, Marcia is totally on board to carpool with you. And she squeals with excitement and starts saying, "This is going to..." What?
I said Andy winces. like, well, he once the end, he's like not nearly as emotive as Marcia generally, and not doing very well with the enthusiasm.
Sure. And to to be fair, like once she has reached this peak excitement, she and her voice does the squeaky thing. She then kind of turns to her notebook and like starts talking to herself rather than to Andi and Frankie, saying, "This is going to be so awesome. This is going to be so awesome. It's going to be great." And the last thing that she'll say in regards to that before I jump to see how Cordelia and Caulan are doing is that she'll pause and look up at you guys, because you often go as a pair, so she's addressing both of you. And with this wide-eyed innocence, "I've never had beer before. Are we gonna get drunk?"
Oh. Just like looking at Frankie like, oh crap, like what I signed myself up for. What babysitting duty have I just...
Okay. So jumping back to that was a pretty heavy thing between Marcia and Andi. How does Frankie feel about I mean, on the one hand, fortunately, Andi started to take Marcia's attention away from Frankie. What does Frankie do during this discourse?
No.
A lot of watching back and forth between the two during the conversation. And just kind of alrighty then. When she asks about, are we gonna get drunk? Frankie will kind of blink at her straight faced and just be like, "You might."
Okay.
We're all really awkward.
Yeah.
As is appropriate. Okay. And so, Caulan, I assume that you are just wrapped up in your book.
Yeah, I mean, if the outside world intrudes, it intrudes, but until it does, you get another chapter in.
Nice. Which, considering the fucking Wheel of Time, like,
yeah,
get
some good reading.
Oh, Jesus.
Takes some work.
I remember those books.
I love them. They're some of my favorites.
So, for the rest of the the session, Abby is going to be a little bit crestfallen about having not gotten attention from Cordelia. So on the to your left, Cordelia, you have a relatively mild-mannered bookworm who is engrossed in a fantasy series that just ginormous fucking book. It could give some of the grimoires at home a run for its money in terms of thickness.
I have them all.
Yeah.
And to your right is a fairly put out goth girl who is at this point trying to pretend that she's giving you the cold shoulder.
Added to like insult to injury, like she didn't get the attention she wanted, but then this other super awkward, enthusiastic person got enabled by someone who usually doesn't go to parties.
Yes. Yeah. Actually, I'll go ahead and we'll roll with that for just a moment. Because Abby has seen Marcia successfully talk with Andi and Frankie about this amazing party. Cordelia, Abby will break the cold shoulder that she's allegedly giving you long enough to lean over and say that. So I hear there's gonna be this pretty rad party tonight at Devil's Rock. That's pretty cool, right? And then like she'll go on like just in order to try to prove her occult points, she will list off like 5 teenagers in the past decade who have committed suicide at that location with, hints of satanic rituals.
5 within the past year?
Within the past 10 years.
Oh, 10 years. Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't hear that correctly.
Yeah. So, it's it totally has that that weird spooky vibe, and she's showing off by listing all of these names.
Yeah.
So how does
Cordelia, she definitely feels a little bit bad. Like she could tell that she hurt Abby's feelings earlier, and she wasn't really intending to hurt her feelings. She just didn't really want to interact with her, but she's definitely feeling a little bit sorry for her. And so when Abby tells her this, Cordelia's gonna be like, "Oh, really?" Like she hasn't heard about it, and she'd be like, "Wow, that's so crazy," and let Abby feel like she's like impressing Cordelia for a moment, even though Cordelia obviously knows all about it. She's gonna play dumb.
Those manipulation skills, man. Good job.
Right.
Oh.
Also, I just want to Cordelia, she is while she's having this interaction with Abby, and she knows she's kind of smoothing things over a little bit. She is watching Caulan and thinking to herself, what this kid is reading is nerdy as hell, but she's impressed by just how like into it he is, and also has the thought that guy might be hot someday.
Hot someday. That makes sense.
Nice. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, but this is one of those areas where there aren't really mechanics per se to force this one way or the other. But I'm kind of picturing like you are, as Abby is trying to impress you with her knowledge of satanic rituals and how they relate to death rates at this location. You already know about all of this stuff, and you know which ones like the one that actually was a satanic ritual,
Right?
Like you know that one, and you know the others had no relation whatsoever. So you try to feed into it, but as you're doing that, you're just a little bit distracted, paying attention to the guy on the other side. So you mean it as, oh yeah, no, that's really cool, and it's more like, yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah. Well,
Okay.
she would also know it was weird if I was like too interested. Like I have to still be a little bit disinterested.
A little bit aloof.
Yeah.
Okay. So I will say, okay, the next thing that I will pop in is going to be, if I remember correctly, Caulan, the person that sits directly in front of you is Mary Ann, who has been dubbed the hot bookish girl, who works at Barnes and Noble, no less.
Okay. All right, glad they're still around.
What's that?
Glad they're still around.
Yeah. This is a little retro. So, in the way that small, fairly isolated towns are, maybe there's still a Blockbuster. But she'll turn around and see the book that you're reading, and she'll try to strike up a conversation about just how much of a slog that fucking book is, and how it gets way better once you get to the next one.
I can't wait. There's just like 500 pages left, so I'm getting close.
500 pages. You're almost there.
Almost there. I think that book is like 1,100 pages. So, like, yeah. I'm over halfway there.
It's
only about twice as many pages as it needed to be.
And she gives you a smile, and there's almost like that thing that where the voice kind of like raises at the end, like that.
Sure.
That thing.
Kids who don't know how to flirt for the first, like, trying to a little bit, and I will try to flirt back, being like, so what are you reading right now? And like, but just not know how to flirt,
Sure. I will go ahead and call that a turn someone on roll.
Yeah. I got hot
Nerdy book
one,
knowledge.
so yeah, turn on my nerdy book knowledge.
And your like interest in her life.
Right.
Oh.
Ouch.
You're hilarious. All right, so I got a 4, so I failed pretty bad.
Yeah. So you start to, try to lean into it a little bit, asking her what book she's reading, and she kind of has a moment where she pauses and leans back and is like, I'm actually 2 books ahead of you on that one.
Oh, cool. And I dropped my book. Shit. And I lost my place again, son of a bitch. Just like totally not paying attention to her anymore because I'm dealing with that and it's awkward in the conversation.
Right. She kind of sighs and like as you're fumbling with it, like, but no, totally. When you get to the next book, we can talk. Like when you get through the next 2 books, we can totally talk about it.
Sounds great.
Unless I'm through the one after that by then. But yeah, well, just when you catch up, we'll
talk.
We'll talk.
All right. Good. Yeah. Totally.
There's only, like you said, 1,000 pages, so you'll get there in no time.
Right. Worth it.
Totally got to talk to the hot girl. Just spend the next 2 weeks just reading.
Right. Just got to read faster now. Mission in life.
Okay. So we'll go ahead and unless anybody else has something particular that they want to happen in like the last 5 or so minutes of homeroom, the floor is open if anybody wants to inject anything.
Does anyone bring up the party to me? Like, it seems like this might be a good way to like get us all to the next thing as we all go to the party. So I was kind of curious.
Let's see. I think.
You know what?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I kind of had this thought. You kind of failed a little bit at flirting with that girl.
Oh yeah, I failed,
right?
so I get a thing.
Yeah,
right?
you get experience. Good call.
Woo! Yeah. Becoming a better werewolf by being awkward with the ladies.
I was thinking that because I was paying attention to Caulan a little bit.
And he didn't just fail. He failed pretty hardcore on that one.
Yeah. So I saw him fail and just had this reaction of like, aw. And so I think I'm going to ask him if he's going to go to the party, because maybe Marianne will also see me, like, ask him if he's going to go to the party, and maybe it might make her feel a little bit like, you know what I mean? Like, a little bit like, oh, like, somebody else is, like, interested in him. Maybe he's not that big of a dork.
Oh, you're doing the wingman thing?
Wingman him, yeah, for sure. Because this fucking nerdy little kid is like...
Nice.
Might be hot. I don't know.
Okay, I'm going to call that a keep your cool roll.
That 1 and 1? Are your dice broken? Because they seem to be only dealing with.
Yeah, I don't like your dice.
All right.
Okay.
Hey, we're racking up the experience quick.
Yes. So, the way that plays out,
yeah.
Like
when you tell me about the thing, you're like, hey, are you going to the party? And like, this cool party that everyone's going to. You want to go? I'll immediately just be like, oh, do you need a ride? Not even considering that it could be like a, oh, yeah. Well, yeah, if you want it, we can go to this party, sure. I guess. Yeah. I'm not doing anything tonight.
Well, and like if I understand correctly, Cordelia, part of your motivation here playing the wingman role and trying to like show Marianne that somebody else was interested in this guy, and so he might be kind of cool.
Yeah.
And given the role, the way that I'm picturing is, you've also established that you think that this guy has some potential, and so like you go in trying to like play this cool, calm, controlled, like controlling the flow of the feelings in the situation, and he turns around and with the kind of bravery and confidence that comes from utter obliviousness,
Exactly.
turns it around, and before you know it, you are not coddling a little puppy. Instead, you have this hot guy saying, "You want me to give you a ride?"
Potentially hot.
Potentially hot guy asking if you want a ride.
And Abby on the other side is just like excited. Oh, she's gonna go to the party now.
Oh, I have to go to this party and I have to ride with this guy. All right. Yeah. That's cool. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. That's perfect.
I'm not gonna shut you down. I still feel bad for shutting Abby down.
So when just pick you up for
Yeah.
okay, like 6 sounds good.
Let's do like 8.
Oh, that okay. Sure. Yeah. Go when it's
Nobody-
cool to go.
Don't show up at 6.
That makes sense. Cool. Sounds real cool.
And so Marianne, as like, obviously, since part of the point was to present Caulan as cool to Marianne is watching this as well. And she's not like heavy-handed about anything, but she kind of like nibbles on the eraser of her pencil and goes kind of like a "Aww." So yeah, and with that, the bell indicating that it is going to be time to go to your next classes will ring, and so I have one thing that I want to throw in as you guys file out, but which is basically going to be that if Marianne has the chance, to just have an aside with Cordelia, like after Caulan isn't in earshot, because I presume that Caulan and Cordelia have made their plans, and now the bell has rung, and so in order to get to his next class while still leaving room for reading in the hallways, I presume that Caulan leaves fairly promptly.
Yep, that's exactly how I used to do it.
Because you walk slower when you're reading.
Right,
Sure.
right. You got to use your peripheral vision to see the legs as you walk.
Yes, exactly. So Marianne will like pack up quickly and just kind of like slide over to your desk, Cordelia, as you're getting ready to go on to the next class, and say to you that was really nice what you did. That was really nice of you. He seems like a good guy. I hope the two of you have fun.
Thanks.
How does Cordelia respond?
I think at this point she's just embarrassed, and she's just gonna say thanks. It'll be fun.
And with that, Marianne will head out of the classroom. Abby, at the conclusion of all that, was kind of giving you daggers.
Oh no!
To stab Marianne.
Because this party that Abby had brought up to you, you then turned around and immediately invited somebody else.
Thereby maintaining your descriptive as the mean girl.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Yeah. Okay.
Although it would be funny if you invited her to go with Caulan, and then he shows up excited for the date, and it's you two, and he's like, shit.
What was that?
Right. And definitely be like, Abby, why don't you sit up front? And just
Right.
Yeah. You know what? I'm going to turn to Abby and say, hey, I'm sure we've got room in the car if you want to ride to the party with us.
Okay.
I assume Abby's still kind of around.
Yeah. We can say that she is. I will give you the option of whether or not this qualifies as a turn someone on roll.
Oh.
Because she has she likes you. It's entirely.
I did not realize Abby liked me, but yeah, sure.
It's one of those accidental turn someone on rolls. Try to be really nice and.
Yes,
so
accidentally turning someone on. That's the thing.
I can't read that. What does that say?
It's high school. Accidentally turn people on, totally a thing. It is an 8. Well, it's a
8?
7 plus Cordelia has plus 1.
Oh, okay, cool.
Let's see. On a 7 through 9, they either give you a string or choose one. So I'm going to go ahead and say that you gain a string on Abby.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And she has a little bit of emotional whiplash on this, but
Thing she would. That's been very
high school.
You can guess him.
That's right. That's how you do it.
Nice.
He's gonna be one of your minions.
Okay. So the and I kind of picture the fade to black with this transition being once again we hear the when we started off and Cordelia was reciting names for memorization purposes. As we fade to black, we hear Cordelia reciting continuing to recite names just as part of the segue. And we will have a sepia-toned flashback of Cordelia, like the voice that is reciting the names is younger than you are. Like maybe this is 10 years ago. You're 6 or 7. You're 7 years old. And you're reading like an early primer version of the stuff that you'll be exposed to later, right?
Yeah.
Or actually, no, it's your grandma. You're reading the standard thing anyway.
Yeah, at 7 for sure. Yeah.
Beelzebub. Beelzebub.
Yeah.
Easily bug.
And like there's There's one specific thing that you're supposed to mispronounce in order to not accidentally summon anything. So, you know, but so we hear the very young voice of Cordelia sort of doing these recitations. But the primary focus of this sepia tone flashback is that it happens in the like in the foreground, somewhere just off screen. Cordelia, your grandmother and your mother are having an argument. And the camera doesn't stay on them for very long, but it's a very fierce argument over something, and your mom looks freaked out. And the argument, like the scene, ends with her slamming a glass onto the table and yelling, like saying your grandmother's like a secret name, right? Something that, like, kind of the witch version of calling somebody by their first name, or calling somebody by their full name, right? So that's what will happen by default. Is there anything that you want to interject with Cordelia doing during this very vocal argument in front of her, or not even necessarily in front of her, but you know, like possibly in the other room, in that way that the parents or the adults are pretending that the kid isn't being exposed to this?
I mean, I would just say Cordelia is like aware of the fact that that argument is happening, and maybe kind of pauses or kind of like falters just a little bit, and then continues.
Okay. All right. And so then the next scene, I want to take a short break. I need to drink some more water. But I want to do a couple of other just like really quick vignette type scenes. And then since you all have basically decided that you're going to the party, after the vignettes, we'll jump to the party.
Cool.
I'm going to go ahead and say that I want you guys, the point of the vignettes is going to be to observe each of your characters doing a thing that relates to your skin in some fashion. Like, it doesn't have to be turning into a werewolf, but you know, something that would foreshadow this part of your character later on. So I'll, when we take the 5 to 10 minute break, I want you guys to think about what your character's thing would be, and then we'll set up a very quick scene that may or may not involve a role. The other thing, Frankie, we're gonna go ahead and say we never established that this is during like exactly what year this is, but we're gonna go ahead and say that you guys have, by default, will have cell phones. It's the thing. Frankie, how involved are your parents with Frankie? Like, I assume, like, you're your mom's wish, so I assume that she's, you know.
Right. Mom tries to be really involved with Frankie, but Frankie's not what she was expecting, and so she doesn't quite know what to do with this child that looks like a girl but likes to play sports like a boy.
Okay.
She's a little confused by it, but Dad's all for it. He thinks it's great. He's got this son, basically, he always wanted in Frankie. And
Uh-huh.
goes to all of Frankie's games and, you know, supports Frankie's sports habit completely.
Sure.
Sport habit. Like it's a goddamn drug. Love
Sports
it.
habit. That's right. Because if you don't let her play it, she'll play it.
Nice.
She's been trying to get them to let her have to get a rugby team together, but they keep saying no.
Oh, I can't imagine why. Okay. So before we go to break, I'm going to say that Frankie, you it kind of sounds like your mom, like your dad is fully supportive. Your mom has expectations and isn't sure how to handle you outside those expectations.
Yes, very.
So you get a text from your mom saying that your father has a business dinner that he's supposed to go to tonight. So it's going to be a girls' night, and she let's see, what would be an activity that she would try to force on you. My first thought is just like watching her favorite romantic comedies, but if somebody else has an idea.
Yeah, I was like, we're gonna bake cookies and watch rom-coms all night or some weird girly thing like that.
She has a soap opera that she really loves and she thinks that you would enjoy, and she wants to share this special moment with you tonight when it's just the two of you.
Creepy. Oh. Frankie will text back and say, "Can't, have to go to a party tonight."
Oh, just straight up. Nah, I'm going to a party.
I got a party to go to.
Nice. Caulan, you're also going to get a text from your mom,
Okay.
letting you know that she's going to a business dinner tonight, and that just, you know, basically just like hoping you have a good evening, and she'll see you tomorrow, and like checking in on I don't know. What's something that you do that you would check in on?
Sure. Just let me deal with that in the vignette. I have an idea for her and my father being in an argument about her going out to the thing tonight.
Oh.
And I've got a vignette in mind for this. So
nice.
Leave it to me.
Okay. And Andi, at this point,
retcon something?
What's up?
Can I retcon something real quick?
Sure. What's up?
Can we say that actually it's not his dad's car, it's his a car from like his mom's family estate, because his mom's going to a business party and she's not going to need it. Like, it was supposed to be his weekend with his mom.
Uh-huh. Sure.
And like, oh no, it's fine, go to the party, nobody's going to be home anyway.
Okay, so you were supposed to go to your mom's.
Take this their car.
Like obviously there's a party tonight, so it's probably a Friday night, right? Oh, so your mom has you on the weekends. Mom has a business dinner tonight to go to. So yeah, your mom just opened up your schedule, no problem, and wishes you, like, hopes you have a good time.
Right.
And in doing so, breaking the deal that she has about your. Yep, sounds great.
God, yes, your mom just reneged on their agreement for the weekend.
Wow. Yep.
Right, because like not only was it like the party thing and the evening wasn't so important, but like there were supposed to be other things happening that weekend, and she's just like, actually this entire weekend is business meetings.
Oh.
And Frankie's like, what about lunch on Saturday?
Nice. Okay. So yes, the three of you, your respective parents all let you know that for one reason or another, they're going to this business dinner tonight, and in one fashion or another, whether it's, you know, with warm wishes to have a good time, or just kind of being, you know, unceremoniously told, no, I'm doing teen things, or however Collins turns out. And so we will end on that, take a 5 to 10 minute break, then do the vignettes and do the bonfire party. Okay?
Good.
Okay. So yeah, it sounds like we're gonna go ahead and start with Colin's vignette. So what?
Colin's, so it's the night after the what we just saw, and mom and dad are like around the kitchen, and they've like made some food for me because like she's going out. And she's gonna be going out, and I'm like, no time, mom. I got to get ready. I've got a date. And like he runs in excited and like starts doing the thing with that like teenager over, like, you know, putting too much gel in the hair, like trying to figure it out, like doing the thing, got the shaving going on because even though he's like 17, he has to shave every goddamn day because he's a werewolf. And as it's going, like you've got like the kid excited, you know, teenage music in the background that gets interrupted by like the parents' arguments getting louder enough that it's interrupting the music, and you hear a few things like her saying, "No, I've got to do this. This is important," and him saying, "Look, I've been in the board meetings. The wards aren't going to go for it." And you know how crazy the Morningstar women get when it, look, I just don't want you to, you know, get in too much trouble here, all right? Like, this is real shit that's going to ruffle too many feathers. And her, like, yelling back about him not, you know, caring about the town and not supporting her when she needs to do the thing. And you see Colin at first is trying to ignore it, but he's getting upset. And he's getting more upset by the fact, like, as they start getting really loud, and it's showing him like in the mirror, but for a moment, the back of the head is in front of the camera's reflection of him, so you don't see him for a moment, and that's when he like grips the sink really hard, and it starts to like crack a little, and he turns around and he yells at them, guys, shut up, I'm trying to get ready, you know. And like when he does, you see the eyes have changed a little bit and a little more wolf-like, and the part that he was just shaving has regrown hair, and like his fingers on the thing, like the nails look a little darker and longer, and he's like, he closes his eyes, so he kind of lashes out at them a little bit, right, to shut him up, and I don't know if we need to roll anything for that or not. But
I'm good with it being just the cinematic if you want it to keep it that way.
Cool. And then he has a moment where you can tell he's like trying to control it. And like breathe slowly, and you can see his skin just ripple a little bit as he's like trying not to growl, and there's like a little bit of that coming from his throat, and he's like, I've got a date. It's fine. I got a date. Everything's good. And that's when you hear like the door open and slam real hard, the front door of somebody like stomping out of the house. And you hear the dad like knock something off the table and it breaks but you're just seeing the bathroom, Right. And the kid just like, try to calm down. And he looks in the mirror and you can see the eyes shade go back to a human shade in a human shape. Mm-hmm. And he breathes and he looks back in the mirror and goes, oh, God damn it, I've got to shave again. And like, that's the end of the vignette.
Okay. Let's see. And I'm gonna kind of do a little bit of a halfway point between the cinematic and the vignette. And I'm going to just kind of like through GM Fiat say that your mom effectively rolled a partial success on a shut someone down check, and gave your father a condition. I'm thinking maybe asshole or drunk or like what I'll let you be the ultimate arbiter.
I really like the idea that she calls him an asshole, and that's something that the kid internalizes a little bit.
Nice. Okay. Especially since that's the last thing that you're likely going, like that's the last impression.
Right. And I like the idea that like Morningstar and Ward, like he name dropped two things that gives the kid leads to follow after all this is done.
Okay. All right. So yes, the hooks have been laid. And whether your father was an asshole before or not, he now mechanically has that condition.
Sure.
Going forward. Okay. Who wants to be next on the vignettes? And Andi, I think you're muted.
Sorry.
That's all right.
I guess I could go if...
Okay. And these can be somewhat involved or they can be short. It's whatever feels most appropriate. So what kind of scene are you thinking? What does Andi do between school or between homeroom and the party? What's an Andi thing?
Well, he follows he goes to his mom's. Mm-hmm. And then they like kind of spend some time around the edge of the family like property, like down towards the river area. He's been spending like more and more time out there every time he goes out to see his mom.
Sure.
But eventually he comes back inside, gets ready, and even though he's usually not one for parties, he's kind of gonna prep for this one because he's got this thing with music. And so he dolls himself up a bit and puts on a kilt and some guy liner and whatnot. And comes back down and he's got one earbud out and his mom's talking to his aunt and as he's like getting ready to go out and his says, well, at least what's I don't know her name, at least Colin's first name would be there.
Linda. No, wait, that's the name of a person that's right here. We call her Cindy.
Cindy.
Like, well, at least Cindy will be like, I don't like this, but at least Cindy will be there. She's always good company. And then, like the aunt kind of scoffs, like, you know, Cindy's not the business interest you should be paying attention to. And then catches sight of Andi like trying to scooch out the door and goes, "Are you wearing that? Like, you can't wear a skirt out. You know, you should go change." And their mom goes something like, "Oh, leave it. We promised Mr. Amati that we would be there by such and such time." And Andi like notices the names, but more than that, kind of what gets him is that, you know, he's lost this weekend that he was supposed to have with his mom, who's not on great terms with right now anyway, but still, you know, teenagers, they can have conflicting emotions.
Sure.
But the promise to Mr. Amati was, you know, important enough to keep.
And it sounds like...
And then he's going to his son's party, you know, tonight, so...
Right. So, Mr. Amati, your mom made a promise to Mr. Amati that she would be at the dinner and by a specific time, and so she is following through with it. And that is why she is saying, no, let Andi do whatever. I got to do something else.
Right.
Okay. That double-edged sword of having your choices be enabled by betrayal and negligence.
Right.
Okay. When we see Andi's response to this, and you said that Andi is like all glammed up for the party tonight. And I'm guessing the part of like the guy liner and the like going like all out with it is kind of like it evokes some of that like otherworldliness that comes from being Fae-blooded.
Yeah.
What's the look on Andi's face when Andi hears that the promise to Amati was more important than the promise to Andi?
Just like very narrow-eyed, kind of cold, like not exactly surprised at this point because, you know, like the divorce isn't old, but it's not new, and like there's been a trend building, you know, since.
Mm-hmm.
But
so the
and what he kind of misses in the like all of that is the part where when his mom says, "Oh, leave it," there's this expression on her face like trying to interfere without causing, like, that was actually mom trying to be productive or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Without causing a scene with the aunt.
But Andi doesn't,
and he's totally missed that in favor of the
Sure. Okay. When Andi leaves, like you said that's as Andi is getting ready to leave. When Andi gets into the car, does Andi close the door softly or is it more aggressively?
He closes the door crisply, like it's not super soft, but
okay.
Not baiting it. The thing that he does do though is, you know, turns up the music and peels out.
Sure. Okay. So the door closing isn't all that dramatic one way or the other, but the moment you're in, volume gets cranked up and peels out of the drive.
Right. Like a very controlled, like he's not completely reckless, but just like still managing to signal.
There is a message in the marks left by the tires.
Right.
Okay, that works. And in a TV show version of that, that would take place. Like, I'm guessing that might be the last shot of the vignettes, because the music would then be able to bleed over into the bonfire scene. But yeah. Okay. So Frankie or Cordelia, which one of you wants to be up?
I will.
Okay. What is a Frankie thing in between a homeroom and party?
Frankie goes home and ignores mom. Goes to her room and immediately starts Googling how to act at a beach party. And starts watching like video clips of like beach blanket bingo and the old Frankie and Annette movies to try and figure out how you're supposed to interact when you're at a party at the beach.
Oh God.
Did she practice the lines in a mirror?
She watches the scenes, and then after a scene you see her repeating the lines back and forth as if, in case some, it's like, hey, how's it going? I'm good. How are you? But really not getting the emotional flow very well at all. And it just, it's bad. It's like horrible acting happening in front of you.
Oh, yeah.
Camera pans back and you see the mom worried on the other side of the door.
Yeah.
What was that?
He says pans back and you see the mom worried on the other side of the door.
Oh. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. And I'm not sure if this was an assumption on my part or if it was text, but Andi, are you giving Frankie a ride, or is Frankie getting a ride from Andi?
Yeah. Frankie, like when Frankie peels out, he's going to, or when Andi peels out, they're going to Frankie's.
There you go.
Okay. So in that case, for the purposes of where we are, as Frankie is having the scene of rehearsing lines that the audience would recognize as being out of sync with the actual expectations of where they're going.
Yeah, and completely inappropriate to the current trends and life.
Yeah. So as that scene is progressing, we hear the like the sound of music, like when Andi had peeled out, the music had gotten really loud. Then we jumped to you, the music cut. Then after a little bit of practicing, we hear the music in the background indicating, and finally, like, Andi has pulled in front, and like the music is blaring, and you can look through the window and see Andi's car, and we can hear the music at almost full volume as Andi is waiting for you to come hop in. Is Marsha being picked up before or after Frankie?
After.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how does the Frankie, when you go to get in the car with Andi, how does that exchange play out? And this could just be real brief. You guys know each other. What's your how do you guys have a interact? What does it look like briefly?
Open the car door, get in the car, close the door, put the seatbelt on.
Hey, you ready for this?
Yes.
All right.
So you're just kind of like sitting there stiffly while the gothed out, or not gothed out, but the glammed out, otherworldly, Fae-like person sitting next to you, like, is for every bit of stiffness and drabness in how you sit, there's just this exuberant force in the driver's seat, and the music turns back up and it peels out, like the car goes forward again. Okay. Cordelia, that takes us to you. What witchy thing or Cordelia thing do you get into between homeroom and party?
So Cordelia is she's in her room. She's got the door open, and she's sitting on her bed, and she's got that big monstrous book on her lap, and she's also got like a smaller, like kind of like leather like notebook beside her that she's like writing notes in.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And she's just sitting there looking very like studious, and her grandma passes by her bedroom door, and she kind of pokes her head in and kind of looks at her, and she asks, so it's Friday night, what are you up to tonight? And Cordelia just kind of rolls her eyes and says, you're looking at it. And her grandma's like, okay, well, she says, I'm gonna go ahead and go to bed, and don't get into any trouble tonight. And Cordelia's like, okay, bye.
Oh.
So grandma, leaves the room, goes off to her bedroom, and Cordelia hears the door shut. And after a couple minutes, she kind of sits there for a minute, and then after she's pretty sure that grandma's gone to bed, she gets up, and she is getting ready to go to the party, and she looks in the mirror, and she's wearing kind of like a low-cut top.
Mm-hmm.
And she looks at herself, and she pulls it up so she's not showing any skin. And she goes, she's getting ready to leave, you can tell, and then she has a second thought. She turns around and she grabs her leather jacket and puts it on and zips it all the way up. And then she actually she leaves out her bedroom window, and then the camera like pans to the bed, and she's left her book open, and all it is that's in the notebook is just a list of names, and it's just like her classmates' names. And
oh, okay, nice.
A little subtle there at the end. I like it.
Yeah. Okay. And so with that, we will go ahead and jump to the party at Devil's Rock.
Real quick, I think it'd be really funny to have the moment of like of Colin showing up and then like realizing that there are two women waiting, and she like has what's her name sit up front and you sitting back, like you were saying.
yeah,
and just
so
the crestfallen face as Colin realizes this is not actually a date. Ah, fuck.
yeah. So first of all, Colin is, I think, expecting to do the like coming to the door,
Right.
like picking me up, and I've actually left the house with enough time that I'm like at the end of the driveway, and it's this like long driveway. And I don't want him going anywhere near the house.
Right. Well, and
So I'm like at the end of the driveway. What's that?
I was gonna say, you guys are an established witch clan with a sizable library in your house, so I'm assuming that
Yeah.
it's a decent sized house with a decent sized like the property is measured in acres, and there is
Yeah.
a long, like the kind of long drive where it probably has a curve in it, so you don't see all the way from one side to the other.
Yeah, absolutely. So so in my mind, Colin's like coming up the driveway and is like surprised. She's like just standing right out there, and maybe he like
With her friend, right?
well, I'm thinking like maybe he like stops and gets out to like open the door, and Cordelia's like, oh, perfect timing, and then you see like Abby coming up as well. and she's like, God, I hate doing this because I feel like it's gonna hurt my relationship with both of you. But yeah, if
Go for it.
Goes, Abby, you know Caulan, right? I think you guys have a lot in common. I think why don't you sit up front, and I'm just gonna hang out back here, and
All right.
and then they both are just fucking sad.
Like, get in, look over, look back. All right. Where's it again?
Okay.
Drive off.
And yeah, Abby, who, has an established thing for Cordelia, and Colin, who has a recently established, rather adorable thing. At first glance, yeah, Abby is this kind of like gothy, nerdy teenager that like maybe would be into some fantasy stuff, but probably not the same fantasy stuff that Colin is.
I bet we could have a conversation over Anne Rice, but that's about it.
Right, which wouldn't that just make it so much worse though if Cordelia was like, yeah, you guys have so much in common, and they're just like,
What are you talking about?
no, literally nothing.
I don't know, there's the young lady that you were expecting to be picking up is not in the seat next to you, but there is a young lady, and she's gothy, and you have read Anne Rice. Do you strike up a conversation?
I mean, yeah, sure, I'll try my best. I'm a little shaken, but I'll roll a hot towards her. I mean, at that age, at this point, I'd have been both crestfallen and gone. I've got two hot ladies in my car. Let's see what I can figure out.
Sure. Yeah. So you got a total of a 5 on that.
Your dice. They're always rolling ones. What's up with this?
You gain an experience.
I do, by just being awkward.
You're awkwarding your way into badassery.
I'm gonna be so experienced in awkward werewolfing.
Right.
I love the idea that this awkward conversation is gonna make me a stronger werewolf. It's just so ridiculous.
Yeah, well, I mean, we joked earlier about how, by season 2 or 3, you've upped your hot score.
Right.
And so this is the mechanic by which you are upping your hot score.
That makes sense. That makes sense.
You're the bookish nerd in the first season who the makeup design combs your hair a different way later on, and they spray when you're shirtless to get a little bit of glisten that they don't do right now.
Can going on. Makes sense.
Yeah.
As if this person from the north, east, or west, whichever it is out in the sun a lot.
Maybe you don't feel like summer.
So I don't know if this will.
You lost your mom. Here's a summer camp.
Summer kids who lost their mom.
So on the map, there is a a place. The campground is by the river, and there is Hard Luck is just to the south and west of the campgrounds. And the common thing for Devil's Rock is not deep into the woods, but it's enough that it's an unofficial kind of place, right? And it's somewhat secluded. And yeah, so we'll go ahead and jump to that. I mentioned earlier that it's unseasonably warm, and it's late enough in the year that it's still brisk, it's still chilly, but there is a large bonfire that has been lit, and it's not the hugest party, right? There's maybe 30 or 40 people. So, and probably 3/4 of them are seniors, and then most of the rest of them are juniors. There's a couple of college kids, and there's a couple of high school freshmen, and nobody's quite sure why or how. But yeah, and the party itself, like, it's not that large of a beach, but there's the bonfire, and then there are like tree trunks and logs that have been set around where people can sit, and like farther away from the beach, there are tree stumps. It's a weird thing where, like, these tree stumps the trees were cut down like a century ago, and the tree stumps are just perfectly preserved. So there are a couple of those. The local lore is that these are the seats that the dark spirits in the forest, these are their little thrones. And there are rumors that deeper in the woods, there's an entire circle, there's a court of these seats. But they just kind of like pop at the various places that the teens hang out in the forest. There's almost always a couple of these trunks just kind of hanging out. And sure enough, somebody brought a generator, and I think I said Logan Amati, the child of Mr. Amati, is there with a couple of other, he's got a small band, and the members of the band kind of fluctuate. He's always the central figure, but they're out there. They've got speakers, and they're playing this music that easily, and no matter what scene we're cutting to, is kind of generic teen, not pop, but like the kind of music that you would expect from a teenage supernatural drama, right? That's always just like, it's some indie band that got popular in the past year or two, but they're not so popular as to be too expensive to get the music rights. But there's going to be a bunch of fans of the show that will hear that song and look them up on YouTube, right? That's the music that's playing.
Totally.
That makes sense.
So, there's, being well versed in beach parties myself, I can say with authority that it's a very standard beach party.
Yep. Those are really popular here in Kansas.
Yeah, exactly. But no, like the main
I mean, this
fire.
is still a beach party, so.
What's that?
Oh, I was gonna say this is still a Midwestern lake beach party. So.
Yeah. So there's the way I picture it. You have the main fire. Logan and his band are playing not very far from that. You've got some coolers with beers, and you've got a couple of people that have stashes of hard liquor. You've got people openly smoking joints. And there's a couple people that are like doing drugs not as openly. The water is far too frigid for swimming or like anything.
Anybody basketball jock who wants to like try to prove his manliness by doing that.
Right, and it's like the lake is at that level where normally it would be frozen pretty solid, but because it's been an unseasonably warm winter this year, there's ice, but it's not safe to go on, right?
Sure.
And all of this is kind of on the beach side in the shadow of just this large rock that juts out into the river. That just seems completely like out of place with the local geography, right? It's almost like it got deposited by a glacier from further up north, but there's not much else around that's like it. So yeah, that's the general vibe. We're not going to spend a whole this isn't going to be a huge climactic party scene. It's kind of like the background for the cut scenes that will be happening. But there's still room for things to happen here. So I leave the floor open if any of you would like to explore any of the situations that are going on. Right now, I'll tell you that by default, Marcia has been super excited about, doing the adult party thing. And now she's hiding behind you, Andi. Like, and kind of, like, isn't sure what to do.
And Andi planned to come to the party in part to do recon and having a hanger on that is not as, chill, for lack of a better word, as Frankie is a bit of a problem.
Okay. How do you resolve this problem?
I think they're gonna try and steer Marcia to one of the liquor stashes, but one of the ones that they know won't have the good stuff, or any of the hard drugs or whatever, baby part of the campfire.
Sure. And unfortunately, when we talk about semi-illicit teenage...
With the freshmen.
What's that?
I said we should stick her with the freshmen.
Because
Because they would be equally excited, match the enthusiasm level, maybe they'll get, caught up enough in each other's feedback loop that we can kind of...
Sneak away.
For a little bit.
I'm kind of picturing, so there's a small group of people that, one of the seniors has set out the kiddie table. And yeah, it just swill, cheap vodka. Like the kind that you're really not supposed, like, you mix it with things, otherwise it's just, no, you don't drink this straight. And the person who set out the kiddie table did not set out anything other than the cheap vodka. But two of the freshmen are sitting there, like, just trying to, like, down it and look cool. And you'll be able to offload Marcia onto that. But you'll need an excuse to leave her as you go to do something else. What excuse do you give Marcia to depart?
Awkward teenager didn't think this far.
I mean, it could be as simple as, oh, hey, I gotta go check something out. Stay here.
I think
There's always
gonna tell her that he's got to return like a piece of like music equipment, or see if they have a piece of music equipment he can get back, because since his mom does almost run in the same circles, like, he's like, hey, I gotta, like, I think the band's break is coming up. I need to see if that thing that the dude borrowed if he brought it tonight.
Okay. So you're, I mean, a way to do that without necessarily, like, stretching the truth would probably just, like, you have to go talk to Logan about something. Logan, the singer. Because, yeah. But yeah, okay, that'll work. Frankie, how are you responding to this?
I wonder if there will be volleyball tonight.
And Marcia is already, like, she hasn't really even drunk anything yet, but she has the drunk giggle as you say that, and just thinks that you're the greatest. Okay.
Fantastic.
So let's jump to the wonderfully, like, the great bonds that are being built over with Cordelia, Caulan, and Abby. The conversation about Anne Rice just was an utter flop on the way. So does that play out in terms of, like, you keep talking about Anne Rice, or did the conversation just...
I think the conversation just died, and yeah, and we pull up, like, quiet, awkward, little bit of music, turn the car off, start getting out, and, like, they're walking. Before I'm, like, out and around, they're already, like, walking in the direction of the party away. You know what I mean?
Uh-huh. Yeah, Cordelia, what's your flavor on this?
I think that Cordelia, she's going to immediately know where and walk to where the good liquor is and go ahead and make herself a drink.
Okay.
And yeah, that's what she's doing.
Sure. And if I were really, like, looking for angles, I might twist that into gaze into this, but I'm cool with that just being cinematic of, like, actually, here's the question. When you know where the good liquor is that because you know who would bring the good liquor and you identify them? Or is that just because you, have a preternatural, like, or a borderline supernatural, like a very low-key
Your superpower is that you can find liquor anywhere.
That's superpower. No, I would say it's because Cordelia is really, in my mind, I mean, maybe she has a little bit of a mean edge to her. People think she's mean, but I think generally, like, she just kind of like exists like among like her classmates, and she's like really observant of them, and so yeah, she would know who would have brought the cool, like the good liquor, and also I think she would be like, it wouldn't be weird for her to just like walk right up and like, you know what I mean, like she'd be having enough like credit to just go like grab a bottle and no one's gonna like say shit.
Sure. Okay.
And here's the thing. After like 15 seconds of thinking about it, Caulan is gonna like try to catch up with them a little bit. So he'll get there a little late and potentially, like having no credit, attempt to do the same thing. And here's where potential conflict can arise with people who would gatekeep, if that's the thing you would like. So.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh, sure.
Right.
Sure. Well, and like.
And he's a little behind because they went ahead, and then he was awkward about it and was like in his head about it, and then just was like, "Fuck it, I should do this. I should pretend I'm one of the cool kids. Like try if he's gone off to do this."
Sure.
And that's when maybe it wasn't all cool with Zach or whoever.
Yeah, the way I'm picturing it is that the obvious pull, you know, because Cordelia would go to some a group that she's familiar with, so it's some seniors, but there are two college kids that are hanging out with in that crowd, and they're the ones that actually provided the liquor, right? And so when Cordelia goes up to get some, the seniors that Cordelia knows, you know, like it's not so much vouching for Cordelia, but you know, like the body language indicates, yeah, she's cool. And the college students, being the kinds of college students that are fucking taking liquor to a late night beach party with high school students, are totally cool with the junior getting good liquor.
Yeah.
And sure enough, Caulan comes up shortly thereafter being super awkward about the entire thing. Actually, let's see here.
Are you gonna make him keep his cool?
Yeah, yep. So I'm gonna go more by the books than usual with this.
Sure.
And who knows, there's a chance you might pull this off.
Right. Maybe I'll be a cool kid for once.
Yeah, you know, like they say, keep the story feral. So we'll let the dice say what they want to. So strictly speaking, name what you're afraid of, and then we'll roll cold. So what are you afraid of at this moment?
Caulan is afraid that he's seen as the dork who's not, like, he's afraid that he can't be one of these people. And he wants to be one of the cool kids, not just like the cool kids in general, but like one of the people that would be like these people. Specifically like Cordelia and her friends. And so he's trying to fit in this moment and trying to be confident because he knows he's supposed to be confident, even though he also knows he's oblivious.
Okay, cool. And let's see what the dice have to say about it.
Hey.
That's a 10. I mean, your cold is -1.
It'd be
So.
a 9.
No, it's an 11 minus 1, so you got a 10.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, either way, on a 10 plus, you keep your cool and you gain an insight. So you're afraid of being ostracized and not being one of the cool kids and not being able to fit in, because everything that you've done up to this point in the episode, you have flustered.
Awkward as fuck.
Right. And here's the fucking like seniors and college students, and you've just seen this person who, for all intents and purposes, has like handed you the teenage rejection, very tacit, like let you you're stewing in your own expectations, who just walked up and was accepted. You walk up, you got it. So you get to ask me a question about the situation, and then you get a +1 on rolls going forward on the next roll dealing with the situation. So what's your question?
What would he care about in that moment?
And it can be a question about the party. It can be a question about the seniors, about the college students, about the band, or it could also be a question about like Cordelia or Abby or like pretty much anybody that you're interacting with.
Okay. What makes the way... God, this is not a question that you'd be able to answer easily. Okay. It's just the question that like he would want to know.
Sure.
What makes the way that he's moving and presenting himself now seem different to the people than how he normally presents himself?
Okay.
And if that doesn't work, if that's too awkward of a question, difficult of a question, that's fine. It could even be just like what makes the college kids seem cooler than he does in this moment, or like that he normally does. You know what I mean?
Sure. I will give you two possible answers to that.
Yeah, sure.
One is the I think the standard, and the other is kind of a subversion.
Sure.
So the subversive one, or the subversion one, would be that, like, yeah, these are seniors and these are college students, but like, who's to say that the college kid isn't a lit major, right? Like, so it's not so much that you're acting cooler now as it is that these are people that dig the kind of cool that you already have.
Sure.
Okay. The other option, which I think is more standard for the genre, and the tropes of the kind of like the werewolf archetype, is that everything that you've done up to this point has been done with a degree of obliviousness that you kind of stumbled into. Like your face has been in the book, and fantasy realm. And this, yeah, you're nervous going into it, but you have settled into, you know, the kind of zen, the kind of non-action of, like, there's a confidence to what you do. You're channeling that flow, and so when you go to get the liquor, it just, like, there is a primalness to the manifestation of your desire that everybody instinctively.
Totally, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Cool.
So, which way you want to go with that?
The second one.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So, like, for all of the awkwardness of the rest of the day, you have found yourself just infused naturally, and you have the aura of being, like, accepted.
Cool.
How does Cordelia feel about this?
Circle and try to make that happen.
What'd you say?
how does Cordelia, like, you went up, you've given like a soft rejection. You've gone up,
Right.
you've gotten your liquor, and you see.
He was a little bit behind me, right? So by the time he comes up, I've already like got my drink, and I'm like standing there drinking, chatting, whatever. And I watch him walk up, and I'm just like, oh my God, like I can't take any more awkwardness from this kid today. Like he's about to just fucking embarrass himself. I was like, just like didn't even want to watch. I started to kind of like walk away a little bit, and I grabbed a joint that I had rolled and like lighted up, and I'm just ready to like get out of there because I'm like, this is gonna be awkward. But I watch him walk up, and I watch this like smoothness and this like confidence, and just watch him like pull this off, and I'm very, very impressed. And so, and I did think already that he was kind of cute, but kind of awkward, right? But now it's like, okay. So I'm walking back towards the car, his car, where I'm gonna smoke this joint, and I'm just gonna like look at him, and I'm just gonna kind of like hold it up and give him kind of like a like questioning, like, do you want to join me?
Nice.
Which I believe would definitely qualify as a hot roll.
I think it would.
I think that is what that means right there.
Yeah. And let's see. Caulan, you have 2 strings on Cordelia, and Cordelia, you have a string on Caulan, and Caulan, you have a +1 going forward. So I will go ahead and roll these dice, and I will, depending on how that goes, I may give you the option of applying your bonus to her roll.
Sure. Yeah, because in part, it's like, does he even like notice and understand what he, so that makes sense.
Okay. So.
Is that a 12?
Yep.
All right.
Cordelia, you have +1 hot, so you just rolled a 13 to turn the werewolf on.
Yeah.
You gain a string on them, and they choose 1 reaction. The reactions that are available to you, Caulan, are: I give myself to you, I promise something I think you want, or I get embarrassed and act awkward.
Don't fucking swear to God.
No. So,
all right.
You know.
I mean, yeah.
So I think what I should do here is roll a keep it cool. See whether I do 1 or 3. You know what I mean?
Sure. Well,
okay.
Okay.
And I've got a +1, so that's good, or versus my normal at least.
Oh, you know how you're complaining about the dice?
Hey, sweet. Yeah. So I will keep it cool and just act smooth and head back to my car, doing the give myself to the witch.
Okay. And the way that I'm gonna handle that particular is we're gonna cut to black as you're walking up. So you know, we can figure out the specifics of that as appropriate, but the point is that you both just maxed out your rolls.
Oh no.
It's also how you get the locket.
Oh, yeah, because
Oh, nice.
Maybe he
Yeah.
drops it and then
Yeah, drop.
Drop.
no.
Drop.
Well, when I have sex with somebody, I get to take a sympathetic token from them.
Yeah.
Oh, you just straight up take it. Haha.
And they know about it and they're cool with it. But I don't think you'd be cool with me taking your mom's thing.
Well, she's not dead yet.
I then.
Do what? That is true.
His
But
mom
still.
isn't dead yet, so taking the
Just
locket.
doesn't know chill.
Fair play.
Although, wait. Is Caulan a virgin? Because you might
Probably.
give away your mom's
Probably.
prized possession.
Probably.
Like, I love you.
Nice. Oh, beautiful. And just while we're in that mode, yes, that is a wonderful way to explain how you get the locket. Because specifically in the rules it says after sex, and for the purposes of this game, I will say that sex is any act of intimacy that warrants cutting to black.
Okay.
So
Sure.
that very wide open on that. Yeah, so you're going to be able to get the sympathetic token, and when the werewolf has sex with somebody, you establish a deep spiritual connection with them. Until either of you breaks that spirit connection by having sex with someone else, you add 1 to all rolls to defend them. You can tell when the connection has been broken.
Interesting.
Yeah, like they have sex with somebody, you just smell it. Damn it. It's cheating on me again. Like I'm the idea slays me. Like,
Yeah, well, and how exactly that plays out is up to
sure.
player discretion. But so yeah.
I can smell the cologne, Sharon. I don't know. The whole idea of like super smell being how they do that slays me.
Uh-huh. Okay.
Wait, hang on. I'm sorry. So now we have some kind of like deep connection. Like, but back and forth is just really funny to me. Like,
Oh, because the sweets. Yeah.
yeah, just like, oh, he's kind of cute.
I mean,
No, he's awkward. I'm
just
not
because
into
it's
it.
a deep spiritual connection doesn't mean it goes both ways.
Right.
Right,
Like-
and now I'm like, I have a pet. Now I'm like, I have
Yeah.
like a
Oh,
And at that age, sure. Getting late doesn't matter.
Yep.
The witch has acquired a puppy.
Right?
right.
But
Yes.
she doesn't respect you. Don't care. Have you seen them titties? At 16, fucking who cares?
Especially since there's been no angst yet. The mom's still alive. Like
Right.
they're
Everything's great. Everything's great and titties.
Oh. So, a question for you, Cordelia, and I will leave this up to player discretion.
Yeah.
You lose conditions when you either have embraced them to the point that there's no longer any social stigma attached to them, it's just who you are, or when you do something that kind of resolves it and people no longer look at you as mean, or in your case, as mean. So I will leave it to player discretion. This, like, a part of the mean was specifically shooting down Abby, but it kind of, the follow through was, kind of like the rejection towards Caulan. You've resolved the rejection towards Caulan. I will leave it to your discretion whether or not you still have the condition of mean.
And she invited the girl out and like took her to the party. So
Sure.
Yeah, I feel like I've been actively trying to come off as less mean.
Okay.
So yeah, I would say that I resolved the condition, although there are some things that I'm thinking about that will probably like give me that condition again in the future. But
it's likely.
for now,
If
I His resolve, maybe.
This is a teenage drama. If you see an opportunity for melodrama, lean into it.
Right.
Right. I almost had a list of things that I would reward EXP or experience points for that you wouldn't normally get mechanically. And one of the things was the first person to overtly stir the shit gets experience. Okay, so yeah, you hold up the joint, and Caulan joins you, and you both just max out your rolls. We fade to black. We jump to Andi and Frankie. How? What are you guys up to now that you have ditched Marcia?
Andi has like a little bit of a conversation with Logan Amati that I'm thinking doesn't go too well on the vague like attempts at recon, because Logan's like, I don't care what my old man's up to and what, but in terms of just social interaction, not too traumatic, because like they've known each other for a while, and I don't think it was a fib that they've actually like kind of sort of jammed in the way that where like Logan has been okay with a little bit of a tag, like maybe not recently, but at one point was okay with a little bit of this tag along kid.
Sure.
Was also in it because like genuinely into music.
Yeah.
Shared hobby.
Like Logan may.
But now that that's done.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say Logan may very well have been the person that taught the specifics of the guy liner.
Right. Yeah, there's a little bit of a crush there on Andi's part.
Yeah. I want to go into that interaction just a little bit, but before we do, Frankie, like, are you still doing the just kind of like following Andi around? What's your play here?
Actually, I will kind of try to stay where I can see Andi and just kind of like mimic his stance.
Okay.
To try to look like I belong here.
Sure.
But yeah.
One of the seniors is going to come up and start hitting on you. And he's you know, like, I wouldn't take it too personally, but you know, you're standing there by yourself, and it's a party, and he's drunk, and the corresponding genders seem mostly in his lane.
Yeah.
Oh.
To be accurate.
So,
as far as he can...
how does Frankie respond to the somewhat slurred flirtation?
You're gonna have to give me something more to work with than that. I mean, what is he actually saying? Is he like, so you want to, go off in the woods together, or what's he saying?
Actually, yeah. No, let's be as direct about it as possible. This and specifically, like you play sports, and you try to get on the sports team. And this is a senior who we'll go ahead and say, what's the male version of like the yell leaders? Is that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so.
So he's a yell leader, and he's seen you at practices before, and yeah, he's into that. So not only is he like, hey, you want to go out into the go out to the woods. He's able to throw in a line or two about having seen some of your moves at practice last week, and he's super into it.
I could try to teach them to you if you'd like.
He is all over it. But let's keep it feral. Let's go ahead and turn someone on.
All right.
Because he's into it. It sounds like you're leaning into it, but there's potential for things to not happen.
Yeah.
Okay, so you have a +1 on hot, so that will put that at a 6, which is just below the partial success level. So how do you see that failure? Like,
Frankie tries to teach him those moves for the sport. That's not what he was thinking.
God. So he takes you in and like he leads you into the woods. And this is one of those things where the further you get into the woods, the creepier it gets. So you're not by default going all that deep into it, but there's still enough that, like, as the camera is panning around this relatively mundane activity, there's like ichor on the trees that shines in the moonlight. And there is a layer of fog that is just barely off the ground, you know, in that way that, like, somebody just keeps putting fog machines in the forest, right?
Yeah. Could be fog, could be swamp gas, who knows?
Right. So yeah, he's thinking that this is going to be a good time, and you start literally teaching him the moves.
Just not quite the same kind of good time.
Yeah.
As it turns out.
Yeah. So, and I'll give you two options on that. One is that he transitions into, like, no, actually, this is kind of cool, you know, like, it's not the expectations, but, like, he's into athletics, so, you know, it's still a thing, right?
Yeah.
He's a little drunk, so he's not that well coordinated with it, but he's also drunk enough that he's open to suggestion. The alternative is that there is still awkward sexual overtones, and it just remains in that awkward stage throughout.
See, I want to go with that first one, but keeping it awkward just sounds more appropriate, honestly.
Okay.
So yeah, no, it just stays kind of awkward.
It's the kind of encounter that you would both walk away from not quite sure what that constituted.
Yeah, I don't yeah, no, that was yeah.
Which actually is fairly relevant, because the hollow sex move is when you have sex with someone, both players secretly write down whether the sex was confusing or soothing for their character. If you reveal the same answer, both characters mark XP. So this is kind of the NPC version of that.
Yes.
Okay. So there's awkwardness happening in the spooky woods, which we'll go back now to Andi and Logan. I'm going to ask, I think this qualifies as a keeping your cool roll. So for keeping your cool, the first thing, name what you're afraid of in this moment.
kind of giving away the game, like I said, Andy's just got a little bit of that kind of sort of hero worship infatuation going on, and I had vague ideas towards some sort of reconnaissance about like, you know, he's heard Logan's dad mentioned by both of his parents, and it seemed to be a source of friction, like, but he's a teenager who they don't know how to spy.
So you're afraid that Logan will see your true intentions.
Or that he'll take offense at them, not necessarily that he'll see them, but
Okay.
that he'll take them in some sort of spirit that they're not necessarily meant in.
Okay. Let's see, and
because at this point it's still fairly like there's a sense of something shady going on, but nothing super high stakes seems to have happened beyond within his own, you know, within their own family circle. So,
Sure.
You know, like
Okay. And like the Amadis are like they are not necessarily the biggest movers and shakers, but they are the most independently wealthy of the movers and shakers. They are the people that if they leaned in, they would move and shake a lot more than they do. As it is, they are just happy to be eccentric and, you know, drop $5,000 on a random school club, or like open up an art center, right? Like they are the eccentric philanthropists of the town. But at that level, there is still a certain amount of the political dance, right? So making a misstep in that, and your mom is very much in that arena. Like missteps have impact.
and
Okay.
8.
And that is rolling cold, so it's a -1, which puts you at a 7, which means
Is
it's a
bottom
partial
number.
success. So on a 7 through 9, the MC tells you how your actions would leave you vulnerable. Decide if you go through with it. I would say that like describe for me again what it is that you're wanting to ask him about.
I think he's just gonna say, like, they're just gonna say something along the lines of, you know, isn't it weird that there have been so many business meetings between so and so lately? Like, I've never seen my mom this wrapped up. You know, how's your dad? You know.
Sure.
Like, kind of trying to play it off of, like, because there is a gap in the circles we run in, but they're close, like saying, isn't it weird they've been kind of merging lately?
Sure.
You know,
sure.
trying to ride in on that sort of like commonality slash.
Okay. The way that asking that about would leave you vulnerable if you go through with it is like you'll be able to get the information, and like things will on a superficial level be really chill, and it'll, you know, the two of you will be doing the dance. But the thing that will leave you vulnerable is that you will definitely be on Logan's, like your curiosity about it will definitely be on Logan's radar. Not saying that he's going to judge you one way or the other, but he will be aware that you are just specifically curious about this specific thing.
No, let's go with it, because he's been the mentor figure kind of at one point. Like, let's go with he's a little bit more savvy about the ramifications of that, and I'm still baby enough. I've missed that.
Okay, sure, that totally.
Or you can kind of throw in maybe like picked up on the starry-eyed thing, like, I wonder if I can use this sometime, like useful information.
Sure.
Not gonna do.
And I'm gonna go ahead and say that he gets a string on you. If I can find the thing with the notes. And what we're going to do is transition from that conversation as you're talking about, isn't it weird that there have been, you know, all of these like meetings, and that like your family and my family are doing the thing, and you know, like just kind of like getting some more information about what's going on that level, which I'm not going to go into tonight because it's late and I want that to be a little bit more fuller. But as you guys are having that conversation, the camera will jump, and we will be having flashes of the dinner party, where there are a number of movers and shakers talking about, and the camera's not going to capture any specific business references, like in the same way that that Caulan's scene intentionally dropped names. This scene, like, goes out of its way to not drop any names whatsoever. It is as narratively opaque as it can get, right?
Sure.
To the point that the cameras, and it's even hard to see who's talking to whom in any given shot. You just see people talking and, you know, like holding little champagne glasses and eating, and
sure. We've got music but no sound.
Yeah. And so the camera will jump from the dinner party to the conversation that Andi is having with Logan. And it'll keep going back and forth. Eventually, like after a time or two, the dinner party starts getting more tense, and the person who will later be revealed to be Mr. Amati seems incredibly agitated, and is being held back by Duke Ward, and Calhoun is sitting there with a nervous look on his face. And then we jump back to the conversation between Andi and Logan, and then we jump back to the dinner scene, and we see Colin's mom at the dinner table, and like she's also visibly upset. And then we jump back to Logan and Andi, and then we jump to Colin's mom leaving the estate and going and getting into her car. And then we jump back to Logan and Andi, and jump back to her turning the car on and pulling out of the estate. And then we jump back to actually, let's dice this up a little bit. So there's going to be a jump to Frankie and the Yell leader being somewhat awkward. Then we jump back to a scene of Colin's mom driving. Then we jump to a scene of Abby, who isn't really being engaged in the party, and has climbed up to the top of Devil's Rock, and is holding a dagger, like one of those like obviously curvy ones, and is saying names that are reminiscent of the ones that Cordelia was saying at the beginning of the episode. Then we jump back to Colin's mom, like obviously with a like upset look on her face, driving like angry. And then we jump back to Caulan and Cordelia in the afterglow. However, the intimacy presented itself. Either way, we jump back to you guys like post intimacy.
Yeah.
And then we jump back to Colin's mom, and we see her put her foot down on the gas pedal right at the beginning of the bridge that crosses from the gates into the city proper, the elite part of town versus the regular, like the rest of town. And we see the car picking up speed and picking up speed and picking up speed. Like it starts out with that same kind of like peel out sound as like it rapidly goes from regular driving to just full on, collides with the guardrail, goes through the guardrail, flies out over the lake, and crashes down into the ice, which I've described as being fairly thin. So as the car hits the ice cracks open, breaks open, and the car starts sinking into the water. And with that, we then have one last jump back to Logan and Andi's conversation, and there's the vague sound of something, like, because this is around the corner of the lake, so you can't really hear it, but the sound still travels a little bit. So there's a sound of something that's hard to distinguish.
There's that crack of the ice. You would hear that, because that sound freaking travels.
Right.
But that kind of thing happens a lot, though, with this kind of weather. So
Right.
It might have been something.
And maybe somebody's like plugging the amp back in to start the next.
Right.
Oh, yeah, or it's in the amp.
And it's also hard to, like, it's faint, which means that either it's a small thing that's close or it's a big thing that's far away. So the audience hears that noise, and Logan and Andi hear that noise, but the audience knows what's going on, and Logan and Andi just don't. And then the last jump is back to, of course, Cordelia and Caulan. By default, I would presume that you guys would be captivated enough with each other that you're oblivious, but one of you happens to be a werewolf with heightened senses, so if you want to correct me on that, this is your opportunity.
No, I mean, I figure that I'm pretty oblivious. I think one of the things that shows that is that in that moment, I've got like shirt off, smoking the last bit of joint that was there, and like not paying attention to the world, you know?
Sure. And so then with Logan and Andi having finished their conversation, it's off camera, but it's assumed that Logan has gone back to performing music, which means that once again, the indie band of the week starts swelling in the background, and the last shot is of the joint extinguishing, like, or being put out. And then we
as I like slip the locket off my neck and like hand it over.
Okay, So and that's where we're gonna end the game for tonight.
Sounds good.
We got a little bit of a late start, and so it ran a little bit late. But thank you guys for participating and for like helping me get over that initial awkward hump that always happens.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
No, this is gonna be fun.
Yeah. It was so weird to play, like try to figure out who he is without the trauma.
Yeah.
Like, that was a really strange task to have.
But you did a good job.
So yeah, I kind of fell back on like me
Sure.
and like how I was at that age.
Yeah.
You know, that awkwardness from the obliviousness.
Yeah.
So. But it was fun.
Nice. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and stop the recording here.
Sure.